There are so many different jobs around the world. Some are quite common, others are rather unusual. Joe Foster has always to have an unusual profession. He just thought that he couldn't stand being an ordinary plumber or carpenter, secretary, or even naval officer. That's why he decided to become an astronaut. What can be more unusual than leaving the final frontier of the planet and heading up to the world of unknown and unexplored? Different people enjoy doing different things. That's why there are so many various professions. To talk about jobs and professions, we will need these words. Alternative – альтернативный. Applicant – кандидат, претендент. Architect – архитектор. Armed Forces – вооруженные силы. Author – автор. Bank clerk – банковский служащий. Beautician – косметолог. Celebrity – знаменитость. Common sense – здравый смысл. Communication skills – навыки общения. Current – текущий. Emergency service – служба экстренной помощи. Energetic – энергичный. Flight attendant – стюардесса, стюард. Florist – торговец цветами. Freelancer – внештатный сотрудник. Hardworking – трудолюбивый. Lawyer – адвокат. Part-time – не полностью занятый. Plumber – сантехник. Requirement – требование. Risky – рискованный, опасный. Salary – зарплата. Seasick – морская болезнь. Shift work – сменная работа. Surgeon – хирург. Translator – переводчик. Vet – ветеринар. Can't stand – не выносить. Bring home the bacon – зарабатывать деньги для семьи. Follow in one's footsteps – идти по стопам. In the same boat – в одинаковом положении. Jack of all trades – мастер на все руки. Artist – художник. Gardener – садовник. Carpenter – плотник. Mechanic – механик. Fisherman – рыбак. Engineer – инженер. Secretary – секретарь. Naval officer – морской офицер. Pilot – пилот. Firefighter – пожарный. Hairdresser – парикмахер. Pay rise Прибавка к зарплате. Apply for a job. Устроиться на работу. Personnel. Персонал. Full-time. Полная занятость. There are different ways of expressing future actions in English language. One of these ways is using future tenses. Future simple. We use this tense when we want to talk about some actions that will happen in the future, about some decision that has not been planned, about promises. To form future simple, we need an auxiliary verb will followed by a main verb in the infinitive form. For example, I will go to France next summer. To form a negative sentence, we need to add a negative particle not after the auxiliary verb will. For example, I will not go to France next summer. Time expressions. Tomorrow, next, in 2085. We use future continuous to talk about something that will be in progress at the definite time in the future. For example, she will be reading tomorrow at 5 o'clock. To form this tense, we need to put the auxiliary verb will after the subject. Then we need to add the verb be and the main verb in its ing form after the auxiliary verb will. For example, she will be reading tomorrow at 5 o'clock. To make the sentence in the future simple negative, we need to put a negative particle not between the auxiliary verb will and the second auxiliary verb be. For example, she will not be reading a book tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Time expressions. Tomorrow at o'clock, this time next week. There is one more future tense in English language. It's called future perfect tense. We use it to tell about some action that will have finished by a certain time in the future. For example, Maria will have already written her essay by 6 o'clock tomorrow. To form this tense, we need to put the subject, the auxiliary verb will, the auxiliary verb have, and the main verb in the form of past participle. To form a negative sentence in this tense, we need to add a negative particle not between the auxiliary verbs will and have. For example, Maria will not have this work done by 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Time expressions. By o'clock, tomorrow. The last future tense is called future perfect continuous. We use this tense to talk about something that will last for some time up until the certain time in the future. For example, Misha will have been reading his book for 5 hours already by 10 p.m. tomorrow. To form this tense, we need to add the auxiliary verb will, followed by other auxiliary verbs have been and the main verb in its ing form after the subject. To form a negative sentence, we need to put the negative particle not between the auxiliary verbs will and have. For example, Sam will not have been reading a book for 3 hours already by 10 p.m. tomorrow. Time expressions. Since, for. There are some verbs that change their meaning depending on the preposition that follows them. We call these verbs phrasal verbs. Pick on – дразнить, критиковать. Pick up – улучшать, приниматься за что-то новое. Pick out – выбирать. Pick at – есть маленькое количество.